This is a 5 minute time frame chart of something that's on strike. It's this sideways move at 4,050, really tight sideways move for a nice run higher. You're doing okay so far in holding and staying above where I needed to. Still a long ways to go, so that will be it on this video for the Bitcoin chart, attempting to get out of the 18 average band. Keyword attempting. The Dow Jones is going to be starting Monday in an attempt to at least stabilize this declining 18, maybe try to get above it. It's just a volatile market. And I haven't even seen what the futures show, as it's 8 p.m. Eastern time as I'm doing this. Markets have been open for 2 hours. I'm going to look at gold next for the first time. Today, that is. And it's riding well above the 18 highs. It's up $1.20 today. So for the last couple of hours, where do we have the market open? Well, maybe longer. How long has this been trading for? January 4. Where do we see January 6? Right in here. So 1,500 hours it started. When did that change? 1545, 1745. It used to always be 1800 hours. So be it. All bets trades of the like with each's own risk reward. I like this 15-minute time frame for gold. Hourly and all this fun stuff, but the daily's looking nice. Let's take a look at silver. And this baby's still soaring over the 18. We're gapping open right now, up 0.4% or 6 2/3 of a penny. Single hour time frame. Hey, I like this correctionary move. I'm very optimistic that this failed breakdown could result into a fast move higher as it comes up to the 18 highs, down to the lows. We ended the session on Friday with this, and we start off, well, we ended it. Nonetheless, we're starting today doing this right now. It's looking good, I think. And onto the alts, we got this LITECOIN. Having all these weird, interesting moves. I'm enjoying this trade. I really, really am. What's it doing? I had a couple interesting pierces, only price pays. So anyone who sold up there, raise your hands. I know you don't see me. I don't have a webcam, but yeah, I sold up here a few times. Single hour time frame. Heck, I should even be doing 15 because this thing is just moving wild. Well, where I did sell was up here. Bought back at this low. Did not sell up here, but that worked out because I would not have bought down here. I did sell up at this high, somewhere in the 700s area, and then I bought back on this pullback down at this low. I was surprised. I noticed, like, just after the fact, oh, buy order fill your aid, buy at 500 change. I was like, really? Cool. So now I'm looking to hope it just keeps on doing this nice choppy action, because that's, to me, that's profit. And as far as my trade goes, using the 620 price point, got in at 655 originally back in here when I started. Each number represents where the trade was. So in here, the first order was a sale. And I sold for obviously a 15% gain, hence that's why it was in here. And then I bought it back pretty much at the same price in which I bought it originally, that I sold. And we can see that as the buys and sells come in on a situation like this is 2 buy orders in a row, 2 sell orders in a row in here. But the differential of the 2 gaps are increasing. And that's the whole part of this game, is to ensure that I can outperform the market. I'm at the stage now where this thing has to be down over 20% for me to go to break even. And I got more coins than I do when I started, because my last trade was here, the buy. And because I bought for at a lower price than I started with, anything I buy in here, below is going to be more than that number because it's my trade is always worth the same amount of Bitcoin. So I dare the orange line to get above the blue one because it can. It very certainly can, and I hope it does because that'll happen when markets go up like 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And then this would be at like plus 500% if it goes up 6x, at least from the buy. And I'll be lucky to be at like 2x or 3x. I dare you, yellow line, to do it. I dare you. And now it's just time to see if any of this law of attraction kind of stuff works, because it would be interesting if that line did actually surpass the other one, meaning it has. Anyway, DGB having a good gain today. I talked about this earlier, and I'm not going to go over too much more other than looking at this on a short-term time frame after having this nice little rally. You call it symmetrical because you got an uptrend, and most certainly we got lower highs in here along the way. Still in the process of correcting this move, this mode. It's still even, I think, trying to establish some support resistance that I might be able to see a little bit better on a shorter term time frame. And we'll do so within the 15-minute. And it's now consolidating closely in this range of 293 to 291. Therefore, once we can get the verdict in further, clearing a break, we got higher resistance in at 295, lower resistance at 288. And we can notice if it gets below here, we're seeing a failed breakout. And I try to, oftentimes those can be some individual or group of people saying, hey, this is going to go up soon. And they think an event's happening, and they might be right or they might be wrong, but either way, it might take a while for the market to move. And I've seen in times where people will buy it up decent, and then next thing you know, the move fails, but later on it becomes good. And that would be an indication if it breaks down below this level of support. For if this rally is real, this support should hold all the way through. And thus, when it ends up breaking it, and then it would have a decent sized break. Now, with that being said, that's obviously short term. The major level that it's going to need to hold is extremely obvious. And this will coincide with the 18 average. So short term, as I was showing this on the 15-minute time frame, one leg lower, I wouldn't be too concerned, because this to me is the major band of support. And also too, if you're in the strategy of trying to get the best buy in, and you notice on the breakout, oh, I'm going to put my buy order in 284, 284 even. Well, you haven't got your buy order hit yet. But if it comes down here, I think it's an interesting buy, to say the least. As if it finds support in here, if you're looking for stops, a lot of times you can have better stops or less of a percentage move to your gain when you buy in this area here compared to waiting for decent sized breakouts. Either way, it's common to have it happen, but because it's consolidated well as it is, if it does break out above this 18 average on the short term as it is, then that would tell me that this move that's occurred from 12:30 up to 13:45 or 1:45 p.m. is a real one, and it's in process of still continuing. And on the daily, you'd be looking at coming up well into the 300s, between 319 up to 339. Let's take a look next at gold against the Canadian dollar. Actually, no, this is silver. Sure enough, 21. To me, I just remember silver was hanging in around 25 for a while. This is 25 in here. Oh. That was, I guess, the buying price. I guess that was my price to buy. I guess that's why I'm thinking 25, because that's usually the price of silver that I was paying for in actual dollar numbers, although that was not the price I usually purchased it in. It was in Bitcoin or LITECOIN. Regardless, here on the monthly chart, I would consider this a failed breakdown if just based on this pattern. Might look better, easier, more noticeable on the weekly. Because the stages are, first you got to break a key level of support. So where would the key levels be? You got this as the lowest end. The range would have been around 20 and a third, 20 and 2/5, up to 20 and a half. So we'll say 20 and a half down to 19 and 2/3. That was the range bound, and it obviously took it out convincingly since it went down to that of 1827. There's that little box that I like to draw for such, and that's a U, a V, however you want to look at it. It's a dysfunctional V, we'll call it. And then quickly thereafter, the price has to go back into its previous conjunction area, which is in here. So it's done that. It usually would quickly go to the resistance of the conjunction as well. So therefore, it should this week, because this is the start of a new period, hit this level. Now, last week was an interesting one because it barely went up and it pulled back. There's nothing wrong with maybe a pullback to this lower line that I drew as it stands. But I would expect if it's going to be that failed move, it's going to hit this resistance relatively quick. And then relatively quick after that, a break. And that's why the first one getting into the upper end shouldn't take too long if we're talking failed breakdown. Because I do notice when it gets bad to congestion area, and it's usually quick, that it gets to the upper end of the congestion area as well. And then from that point on, again, relatively quick, it would have its fast move, because the fast move would happen breaking this point. A lot of stops and all those things for, well, in this case, short positions get triggered big above this line. There's a lot of reasons why you can have decent sized moves. And a fast move higher, you'd have to think, as I'm drawing this line, conservatively 24 and a third in Canadian fiat debt notes, which no longer has John A. MacDonald on the $10 bill. And as I was going through the drive-thru one day about a week ago, I had to pay for the meal, and it was $12. It was under $12, and I had a $2 coin, and I knew I had a purple bill, which is a $10 piece. And I kind of screamed a little bit, but not for that long, not for that loud. Thankfully, it was in the drive-thru and not in the actual restaurant itself, because that would have really looked funny if I would have taken a piece of the dollar note out of my pocket and screamed for about 2 seconds, because I looked at a picture of a woman on the $10 note. I haven't done much research on her, like 30 seconds worth, and that's not sufficient enough for me to remember what her name is. But they put somebody else in the bill, and I was a little freaked out about that for a few seconds. Anyway, I think that a move above here would be pretty cool. And here I look at palladium. I remember looking at palladium when I was buying all my silver and even gold via cryptos. Guess I got to look at the weekly chart now to see when that was. That was basically when it was down in here, and I refused to pay the fee. What was the fee? Well, in Canada, there's sales tax, not on gold, not on silver, yes on palladium. And it's not that cheap in Canada for our sales tax, and that's why I didn't get any. But I really was trying. I guess I didn't try too hard, I just never did. I don't own any of this. It's a nice metal, at least so I've heard. I like how this price is breaking resistance. One thing we can look at for Fibonacci is Fibonacci upside, just for something to do. I see a high at 1140 when I round it, which is fine for me to do. What I'm looking for is an uptrend, easy to see, and a down move. which technically speaking, let's just be real here. I mean, short term, we're already at resistance. I'm not going to use this as a low. It's too high. I pretty much want to go with an approximate area of a 61.8%. My theory, and by the way, if you thought that was your text, if you hear a text sound, that's mine. But and it seems I know some other videos, some people use that exact same text sound. I gotta think I'm gonna use this number of 685. That looks close enough. Up target 1562. I wouldn't be surprised if it hasn't moved there, because that tells me that a decent leg from this point A to point B from a correction should be around there. Because to me, it doesn't make a difference whether it goes down only to 870 or down to here. On a break of this resistance, I'm expecting the same result. And when these things go, they can have decent sized moves, of course, as we take a look at it from this low. Huge move. From this low, not okay. From this one, we've already had a good one, but now we're from this one. From this low, it obviously had a good play, and here it had a good play. There's been a lot of good moves on these breaks above, but this is an interesting spot as it's, I mean, just broken this level of resistance. If you want to get technical about this move, I could almost use the Fibonacci upside from 1080 down to 142, and I think that would be relatively a good accurate number to go by. So let's do that. 1080 and 150. Up target 3658. And I probably even think it could get past that pretty good. But that tells me that that's general areas that this could make it up to. And let's move on to another altcoin. If you don't like these types of moves, then, well, I do. If you don't, you don't. And I didn't want to bet on pro football really much this year because it's just a hard game. However, and you can check, if you want to, you can check previous history on this. It's done phenomenally well in the past. At least I figured this out like well over a decade ago. I think there's still 2 more plays left on this system for next week. That's the record this week in the NFL for quarterbacks playing their first ever playoff game. Trubinsky lost in pro football. And then before that, we had a couple other quarterbacks playing their first game lose as well. We had Baltimore's quarterback lose. And we had another one. Next week, Mahomes for Kansas City. And I don't think Jared Goff's ever played a playoff game, but he might have. But definitely Mahomes hasn't. So he's a rookie. And he's going to play against somebody who's not a rookie. So something to keep in mind. I think both road teams in the AFC are going to win next week. I think it's going to be a Colts versus the Chargers. I mean, I'm so used to saying San Diego, and I almost did again. Los Angeles Chargers. These are 2 quarterbacks who have never been, and we'll see. Anyway, 0-3, that's the record for quarterbacks. And before then, the record for quarterbacks in their first ever game, it's really, really bad. And let's move on to Dash. I guess we'll do Ethereum next because I haven't done that in a couple of days, I don't think. And when I talk about these different things, it's if you're into different things like sports betting, I figured out years ago that rookie quarterbacks don't do well in the first round. Also, though, road teams don't do well in the second round. Although lately it's been a little bit better, so I feel a little more confident backing, of course, the 2 teams that I mentioned. Dash is just holding in there, but it's holding like a thread amongst the 18 average of lows from this correctionary move. Have we seen LITECOIN have a good leg higher? We've seen Ethereum have a good leg higher. And if you're dumping those coins or portions of such, and I'm big on the portions of coins, that's practically always how I'm trading and buying and selling, bits and pieces here and there. Well, then this is some, like, coins like this that are down are ones you can get into. I mean, some are down even worse than Dash. Nem, I mean, it had a good move, but it's going down a little bit. And next up will be gold against the Canadian dollar. I totally forgot that. That's something I really, really wanted to see. So we'll put that on now. And it's 1,721 having its correctionary phase. It had one here, I guess, sort of. It kind of came to the 18 highs or day of going sideways. Really, this was your correction here, mainly going sideways. And when you look at chart patterns, like Litecoin, not like it was a surprise it went up, because I talked about that before, because it had a nice little pattern. When you see this in advance, and that technically that line would have been even closer to there either way. Oh, you come up to it here, you find 18 average low support, you resist highs, you hold and stay above the 18 highs, or lows rather. That's why I'm going to say this here, because it went below it, but it can only hold and stay below it for a couple of days, and that was about it. And then it manages to have a good break on this day, stay within it for the next day, break above it on this one, and then support the 18 magnificently for about 10 periods, 2 weeks or close to such. And then you see this, oh, a break of this resistance. That's why one of the early things I went on the theory of trading on the early days, this is 2008, when I'm playing the practice games, that this is where you go long. You just buy it as you see it. Like, this is where you would buy it, and you can see and hear how it would be, in this case, the correct play. Because when you know that you have a good leg higher, oftentimes they're going to start, well, early on in it, it's going to start from a good bullish setup, and obviously it's going to start from down in here. The only way you can buy this is fishing for a bottom. Sometimes it's correct and sometimes it's wrong. Or not correct, I'm not going to say it's wrong. But let's get real here. If you buy here thinking it's down too much when it was 15.98 or something, around 16, and you didn't sell this, and now you're sitting at 17.21, that's a good buy. Just like if you sell here, say if you're to sell at this top, it goes to say 18.80, and then it pulls back down to 16.25. You buy. Well, you could have done better, but you still win on the exchange. So picking tops and bottoms, you're not going to be able to get the key numbers hardly ever at all unless you buy at every dollar, which I'm sure some people do, not watching this video. But it's something you just can't do. But you can get close. And when you're close, then it works. But sometimes you can miss it. I've been talking about trying to buy Bitcoin at 3,000, but I would show it. It's just I'm on strike right now. Thank you for tuning in and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.